It's that time of week again, Sunday, and welcome to Steve's Place. And obviously the QR code, if you want to click on that, that'll take you to our website, TeslaTech.info. And this week, I want to remind everyone we have our conference coming up, and we expect for that to be a very good conference. Uh, and I encourage everyone to sign up for it now. Right now, we still have a 25% discount, and that people go in there and can sign up for that and get the hotel rooms. The hotel rooms start at $84. That includes breakfast, and that's a huge discount because normally if you walk in off the street, let's say during the conference, you will be paying $180. Plus, you'll be paying a breakfast, and considering that the breakfast comes with that $84, I mean, that's a bargain. I mean, the buffet there costs like $20, so it's a huge bargain. $84 it's starting at, and for two people, it's $88. You can't beat that with a stick. So I encourage everyone to come to the conference, get signed up for the hotel as soon as possible, get registered. We have a 25% discount, and you can do it either at TeslaTech Info. And we have a new website, TeslaTech.live, where we have a sign-up capability there too. So mark your calendars. August 7th to 11th is coming on us pretty fast. You should have gotten a program in the mail. If not, it should be coming there any day now. And if you're not on a mailing list, you might want to contact me and I can get one mailed out to you. Okay. And we also need to sign up for our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel, we have over like 1,600 videos up there. I'm putting more up every week. We have two types: subscriptions, and subscriptions are free. And we have a couple that you can watch for free. Plus, we have a membership, which is $9.99 a month, gives you access to all 1,500 plus videos, and these are, you can watch them from anywhere in the world that you can get YouTube. You can generally watch these unless you're being censored by your country. But then I can recommend everyone might want to try a VPN, which is a virtual private network, which allows you to watch things from anywhere in the world. Yeah. Anyway, with that, I just can't stress, you just can't beat our YouTube channel. And on the TeslaTech Info page, our main page, we have access to the channel, but we also have a conference directory and a speaker directory. And with the speaker directory, conference directory, if you know what you're looking for, you click on that. You can pick out, that, and let's say it's a conference. You click on the conference that you want. It brings up all the speakers that's in that conference. And if you go to the speaker directory, you can find the speaker that you want to check out. I click on that name, and it will bring up all of that speaker's presentations over the years. Okay, now we have a guest with us tonight. His name is Becket Fusik, and he's an influencer. Well, influencer wouldn't be the word. An educator of influencers. I think that would be a better word. And here he is, Becket.
Hello.
And
Steve, thanks for having me.
You want to tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So educator of influencers is not a way I've been described in the past, but I think it's pretty fitting. I'm being completely transparent there. So I'm an entrepreneur, and I started that journey back in 2017 with this company, which has taken many different forms, and it started in digital marketing. So we were simply going out, finding local businesses and teaching them how to get in front of their customers online. And over the years, we developed a lot of systems and strategies that were very effective. Through that journey, that 7-year journey, I had the beautiful opportunity to meet a lot of amazing, incredible individuals that I call them leaders, people that I looked up to, that I was learning from, that I believed others would get value from hearing what they had to say and hearing about their mission. And that is really where Audience Generator was birthed from, which is focused around finding leaders and people who share a similar value system to myself and my network, which is all about the pursuit of truth. I mean that with a capital T. So the gut feeling that you have, the things that we know to be true as human beings, just from a unspoken or from a lack of words perspective, and also people who are trying to help other human beings become more free. That can be freedom through health, that can be freedom through mind, that can be financial freedom. But we look for people who are embodying that in their ventures, in their movements, and we help them kind of adapt to the changing time and create content and spread their message out there in a way that is authentic to who they are and to where the world is heading. So and I'll rant about this for a second and then we can go back and forth here, but what we see changing in the world is we've lived in a influencer culture. People who go online and they're like, hey, Steve, look at me, look at my things. Let me create things that I want you to consume. Here's a piece of content on social media. Here's a product for you to buy. I want you to consume all of this. And social media is so often looked at like a one to many. I put this out, I can reach all these people and I can get them to make all of these buying decisions or decisions to give me their consciousness. And our core philosophy is social media is the greatest connection tool that we've ever seen as human beings, that we know, at least in this 12,800 year period that we have history around. This is the only time where someone in Korea can speak with somebody in the United States, whether it's through a video they see or whether it's through messaging. And we try to train our clients and the people we work with to embody that. So if you are a holistic health practitioner and you want to educate somebody about how they can take care of themselves or health practices, in a one-to-one conversation, you're not going, well, I'm not going to tell you this because you need to buy my program, you need to buy my course, you need to buy my service. You have a mutual exchange of value. There's a level of connection that you feel with the human being. And that's what we try to do. So we try and find people who are doing good in the world and teach them how to properly communicate with their audience in a way that is based on a mutual value exchange and not based on extraction.
So I understand you were just doing Randall Carlson's conference.
Well, not Randall is a speaker at Cosmic Summit. So yes, last week I was in Greensboro, North Carolina with the Cosmic Summit, which is George Howard is the organizer of that conference. Is Cosmic Tusk is his online handle. He's been around for a while, part of the Comet Research Group, and he's been a part of papers about the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. But yes, my company handles the digital side of Cosmic Summit, and George and I have made good buddies over the last 2 years trying to build that up from branding and marketing, but just getting involved in everything that it takes to build a conference, which, as you know, is a lot of stuff.
So yeah, we hope you come to our conference and maybe help us out with our conference. We kind of
definitely
speakers.
Yeah. So how we ended up, our approach for Cosmic Summit was, I mean, George, I remember this very, very vividly. I used to live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I was at a boxing gym and I just finished sparring this heavyweight boxer. And I am not a heavyweight boxer. I weigh 170 pounds soaking wet after eating Thanksgiving dinner. And this guy was at 210 pounds, and I got thrown in there and we were sparring and I got the snot kicked out of me. And I walk out of the gym and I'm sitting on the curb. I'm like, oh, I got a headache. And I get a phone call. George calls me and he's like, Becket, Jay Warsaw told me to call you. He said you do social media and marketing. I said, I do. So, well, I've got a conference coming up, and the show Ancient Apocalypse had just came out, Graham Hancock's show. And Graham and Randall Carlson's episode was airing on Joe Rogan, one in, I believe it was December of 2022. And they had shouted out Cosmic Summit. George was like, that's coming out at 5 o'clock. It was 1 p.m. He goes, I want an ad up by 5 o'clock to collect the people who are going to be searching Ancient Apocalypse and searching Graham Hancock. And we put it up, and that's how it all started. And since that day, it developed into much more than advertising. We've put out 2 to 3 videos on social media of the speaker's content, of George's content, of original content that we've made with the speakers every day across Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube to try to build awareness for these subjects and try to build awareness for the conference as well.
Well, I know, like, I'm not a social media type of guy. I'm an influencer in my own right but I do it on paper. I'm old school, paperwork, As I do a written program, which everyone should have gotten. Hopefully, if they haven't gotten, we'll be getting one in the mail, because I'm old school. And I found that when I get the written paperwork out in the mail, that's when people start really signing up. It seems like there's so much fake news on the social media these days that I don't think they really trust the social media anymore, like they did at first. And then they get all this fake stuff, and you can be anything, do anything on the internet, and it doesn't even have to be real. And
that's a wonderful observation.
That's because we had the conference, okay? Because at the conference, an in-person conference, you have to be real. I mean, you're a real person. People walk up to you, and maybe shake your hand at that, and you're not shaking a wisp of air there, I mean, it's a real person, and you can see what they really do, if they have a table there and they bring their products and that, you can, experience it. I'm more of an experienced type of person, so the whole social media is it's a brave new world for me. I feel like a stranger in the strange land, as Heinlein would put it.
Yeah. Well, it's a brave new world for all of us. It's very new in the if we're looking at human history, like I started this off by saying, we've never really had anything like this. We've never experienced anything like this in the past. Now you can look at something online, and it's not I choose to believe this or not. It's just another piece of information that is given to you that you now have to decide to hold. How much weight do you put to it? So you make a really good point. Trust has been broken tremendously online, especially through social media. We call it the extraction community, and we're looking at this as the previous phase of social media, where everything was based on extraction, and people were excited about the person who's got a Lamborghini that they're posting on their page, or the person who says they've invented this amazing technology and they're photoshopping all of this stuff. And people had their trust broken so many times that most individuals' initial reaction to something that's outside of their scope, outside of their current paradigm, is dismiss it. And a lot of the time it's attack it. It's not just let it go by. It's, oh, I need to attack this because it's identified as a threat to what my beliefs are, what my ideals are. So what we're looking at is that opens up a beautiful opportunity. Once you get to the end of a phase of social media being brand new, anybody will put anything online. People are easily fooled. We're now in this stage where people are reevaluating their relationship with not only social media, but their phones in general. And a lot of people are using it more and more, but people are looking for real stuff. It's like when you go to have you ever been to an all-inclusive resort before, Steve? So, the first day you get there, they've got the buffets, they've got, I don't know if you drink, but they've got free drinks there. And It's all you can drink, it's all you can eat, and you get all this easily accessible dopamine and all this amazing stuff up front. And then you stay for 3 days, it's still pretty exciting. 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. You get to that 7-day period, 8-day period, and longer, you're kind of like, oh, I've been living in this fake, very relaxing area. I want something real. I may want real food. I may want to go back to my normal place, or at least to what reality is for me. And if you pull that example out, I think that's where we are. We watched some crazy things happen in the world. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are about anything that happened with COVID-19 or in the United States. It was a very strange world, and there was a lot of deception on both sides of the aisle, if you want to call it that, but just in general in the world. And I think people are looking for others to be leaders, true leaders, not people who are going to tell you what you want, but to have uncomfortable conversations, to be willing to propose ideas that are outside of the mainstream and maybe contradicting things that we've known for a very, very long time. And you can watch it. You can look at the stats on, let's just say Instagram, for example. The number of the growth in the category that is called alternative science has had so in the 2000s, very, very little, but not a lot of content. Well, the amount of content that's being produced in that category has a hockey stick curve right now. And the amount of consumption goes along with that, where so many more people are considering ideas that would have never crossed their radar in the past, and they're dismissing ideas that don't have evidence to support it, that they've been told for a while. And this is the trust building process we're going through, or rebuilding of trust. People who have a pure intentionality have the ability to be a shining and guiding light online. That's the gift that we have. If you want to be a leader and you have things to say and you can communicate, whether it's through writing, whether it's through video, audio, you have the ability to do that, and you don't have to sit idly. You don't have to feel helpless. So many times in the past, whoever had the most resources was always going to win. If you didn't have enough resources, you would get crushed. Well, your ideas can now rise to the top, and it's a process of trust on both sides. Trust from the people consuming that information and trust from the people creating that information.
Well, I like to emphasize to all of our independent researchers and inventors out there that there's a lot of content being made, as you say, but the thing is, you can fake anything you want, and the only way to get around that is to have independent verification. And we do that here through our conference, and people can bring the stuff to the conference, bring the stuff up, and there's an independent viewer out there, hundreds of them out there, who are hearing what you're saying and will ask the tough questions, and if you have a demonstration, you can see it, and see it, you don't have no strings or anything attached to it, and that, and you just can't really do that on social media. They used to do that in orthodox science or conventional science through a thing called peer review. And that's, we are not peer reviewed because these topics I cover are supposed to be so outside the realm of possibility that you shouldn't really have that many peers, So peer review really be impossible in the conventional sense of the word, At that point, the peer review becomes sheer opinion. But peer review is a way for the scientific world to get a consensus on what is a fact, and that's being disrupted now by Chat GPT, the IA experts, and as a thought experiment, I wrote a paragraph to one of my friends about what I felt about peer review and the incident we had with Wiley and Sons, which are
Mhm.
this was the standard, the gold standard, for facts, scientific fact. And if you've ever been to college, in a technical world, I'm sure you had a Wiley a textbook, usually in physics and that you went and bought, and that's what your whole education in that field is based on. But now they're having this problem where they had to ditch 11,000 papers because ChatGPT wrote them, and not only do they write them, they mess it up. They don't use the right uh, sources. If they use a source at all, they'll make things up. They'll make up a source. This is your artificial intelligence at work, our biggest danger out there, and why we need to have in-person conferences to verify.
Agreed.
And we need people like you to help us get people to these conferences to see for themselves, as opposed to taking somebody's word for it. When you
Yeah.
when you
I mean,
operate when you operate off a belief, that is called um, when you're operating off a belief system, that is cause of religion, and that's what sometimes science became, and that's the coming of people like Galileo, burned at the stake, and yeah. So anyway, how do you approach attacking that issue of trust with your efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. At starting, there is no replacing what a term that George Howard has coined called the meat space. You can interact all online all you want, but you can't replace it. You can't replace a face-to-face human interaction. And that is not the goal of social media at all. And that's a really important thing to start from, where anything that you put out to the world, you should approach it as one day I could meet every single person who consumes this and answer to their questions or to their concerns, whatever it may be. So, how do we approach it? I mean, I think the deep question is with AI in this world, how do we maintain integrity when creating content and when giving people platforms? And this may be a little controversial to your audience, I'm not sure, but we embrace AI for what it is currently, which is another form of leverage for the amount of energy you can get out in your work on a day-to-day basis. So we utilize ChatGPT, we utilize Claude, we utilize Bard, we utilize all these different tools, but we don't do it for generative information. We provide information for it to help us structure and organize. So this is a very, very important conversation that that I try to kind of make a first approach to our employees and also to our clients. There's a difference between asking somebody to do something for you, saying, hey, go write me this paper about this topic, or asking somebody to help you with something there, or ask you to help. Oh, I got a phone ringing in the background,
That's me.
Steve.
That's me.
Okay. Yeah. So if you ask somebody to write you a paper on vortex-based mathematics, hey, go write this paper, and ChatGPT goes and writes the paper, well, you're being extremely irresponsible at that point. Your entire thing was, I don't want to do the work. I want somebody else to do the work for me, or I want something else to do the work for me. There's another way to interact with these platforms, especially ChatGPT. And very simply, you can start with the formula of, I'm going to write my whole paper. I'm going to collect all this information. I'm going to do everything that I would need to do in order to put out, and I'm not a researcher nor a scientist, so or I'm not a professional researcher neuroscientist, so I can't say that I condone scientists using AI for papers. But how we use it is, okay, here's a campaign that we need to run. We want to educate people about the younger dryas impact hypothesis, which is a campaign that we ran. We actually we worked with the Comet Research Group when they had 3 papers released. I believe this was back in November, and they were 2 of them were led by Dr. Andrew M.T. Moore, and they wanted to get more awareness on these papers. So how do you get awareness? Well, a lot of people are spending a lot of time on their phones, and they need to get an engaging piece of content. So what we did was we took all the information from the papers, we downloaded them, and then we had George Howard and Alan West write context for what people were about to read. Say, hey, this is the context of these papers, and they provided that to us. And then we said, okay, well, what do we want to create from this? We'd like to create 5 different videos for each paper that allows people to, in the first video, have a general overview of what this is. 2, give them a very short snippet to create curiosity. And then the other 3 were just different versions of summaries. And with the context of all the paper, with the actual papers and the context provided by Alan West and George Howard, we were able to come up with 5 different video scripts for each one, which we then had Alan record one video directly saying all of that, and then we had AI create the other 4. And we did that through actual AI video creation through a platform called Runway ML. And we created visuals using Midjourney, created using DALL-E, and then it was pieced together into a video that was then approved by the people who were on the paper, saying, "Hey, this is accurate representation of what we're doing." And then we could use that to then get it out to, I think we ended up reaching 800,000 people with those ads for a relatively low cost, and having tens of thousands of people go and read that paper who probably would never have heard of this. So how do we manage this crazy world of AI being able to pump out content? Well, we use it responsibly, just like any other tool you have. It's not meant to replace the thought work and the critical thinking that goes into building something significant, creating something significant. It's supposed to help you with the heavy lifting. When you if you had to design a house, you do all the design work, you do all the math, you do everything you need to know, and you source all the materials for it. You could have a person, you one by one, build this, or if you had a tool to help you piece this together as you overseed it and interacted with it. It's kind of how we look at it. We kind of look at it as a building tool to some extent, as structure.
Yeah, but still can't trust it.
I'm not saying you should trust it. That's not actually what I'm advising. I think that it's important to recognize we live in a world where people are going to be using it, and I don't think it's going to be losing any steam. It is our responsibility, or at least I'll say we take it as our responsibility at Titan on an audience generator to say, this is how you responsibly interact with it. This is how you sense make through all of this information that you're consuming. And this is how you're honest. This is how you interact with it, honestly.
Well, what I believe still is experience, experiential techniques, outweigh any like AI crap. They it will throw anything at you, and they overwhelm you because it can throw out so much more stuff at you than you can dig up in the same amount of time to counter it. But it's not because it's not there. It's because our ability to work is so much slower than AI is to generate it. And so it's good to use it, to a point. Like a calculator. But the problem is, these are getting beyond calculators. the phones are becoming way too smart, you know, and and it makes you lazy, you know. Like, do you do you remember people's phone numbers anymore?
Not many of them.
No, because the phone has relieved you of the obligation, and because of that, okay, uh, our minds get kind of lazy, and it's going to go across the board eventually. Uh, people don't go out and do their own research to make sure that the facts are really real, and that's a come. These conferences are really important. Every time you get involved with a physical in-person conference, I think is a good thing, you know. And so uh, I've always had these conferences, and I'm trying to get my magazine back. By the way, back into print. You know, I had a magazine uh, on this technology, extraordinary science and technology, and in that, you know, it gives me. I'm a lot better printer or writer than I am a speaker. So
Yeah. So about in-person experiences in events,
yeah,
there's really, I mentioned this earlier, but there is really nothing that can replace it. And the experience that you get face to face interacting with other human beings is an experience of flow that you can't find through your phone. Maybe like this, like we'll have this conversation, still not the same. If we were in person sitting there talking together, we'd have different physiological cues, and we would actually have our energies closer together, and it would feel different, and our experience would be different. And the process to finding that for somebody can be, I mean, finding what that is for somebody can come through a digital means, but just focusing on the in-person experiences. When you are planning one, when you're planning Tesla Tech, what is it that you hope to accomplish that for the attendees, for the people who show up?
well, for the attendees, I expect they're going to end up with a smile on their face because they found what they wanted to find. You know, I try to get cutting edge stuff, okay, material that you're not going to get anywhere else, okay, and the latest information, and you're going to get an opportunity to sit down and talk to other inventors or other people who's doing similar things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's kind of like a bonding thing, you know. And yeah, as Karen says, you know, we're kind of like a tribe, you know, and we're out there learning stuff. You know, we're like a family. You know, would be an even better way, you know, of like-minded people. You know, uh, where people can present their ideas um, and not be totally laughed at. You know, and sometimes you know things do happen, but for the most part, you know, people there are pretty respectful in that. You know, and people have a chance to learn what they wouldn't learn otherwise, meet new people, you know, and maybe that's the most important thing, you know, is meet new people, you know, because ever since COVID, people have been isolated. I mean, that period that we went through has been more divisive to this country than anything I could think of. It took people out of the restaurants, out of their meetings and everything, and forced them to stay home basically and communicate with people through a screen. And through a screen, you can't um, make the connections that you would, you know, and it's really hard to read somebody uh, through a screen, you know.
It's a different process, 100%. The way that you create a real connection through a screen, through social media, or through any digital means is it's a longer process, first of all, and it is one that is, I would say, more gentle. Uh, when you meet somebody in person, at least in my experience, throughout my life, there's a lot more forgiveness. People see you as a human being, right? You can stumble your words. They can't just judge you through a screen. And when you're behind a screen, everybody feels powerful to some extent. They can sit there and they can point and say, "Oh, I don't like that." They can use it as a place to regain some control. But there is a place for it. And it's that starting point, because the amount of people who will show up at an in-person event is much less than the amount of people who could consume that information online and could find it digitally. So I actually, well, just to be very clear, set this straight. I am in 100% agreement with what you're saying about in-person experiences cannot be replaced, and they are in a category of their own. At the same time, which two things can be true at once, the amount of consciousness, the amount of human beings who decide they make that vote of value with their attention to their screen has shown to us that we as human beings, at this point in time, the data says that it's important to us. And when there's something that we recognize as important, as much as we would like to point at all the negative sides of it, it's important for us to both point at the negative and the positive and create a synthesis of experience. Because now every day we have an in-person experience with this thing that some people love more than their family, which is kind of a joke, kind of a dark thing to say, but I've met some people who can't go more than a minute without their phone. So what do we do? How do we approach that? I think we approach it through making it human again, reminding people that the reason why they love their device so much is because most of the time, they're trying to connect with human beings. It just feels like a less dangerous way to do it because they don't have to put themselves out there. They don't have to go and travel. They don't have to use as many of their resources in order to get to a place. And the process of building trust has become a lot longer. Somebody can see something on social media, and over the next 6 months, for them to make a decision to give attention to go fly somewhere or drive somewhere, meet all of these people, it's a different process, and they're both happening at the same time. So for TeslaTech, for example, as we start to get your brand farther and farther out there, we'll go through that uncomfortable process, Steve, where I'm like, okay, well, we're going to take all of this content and we're going to start to make it bite-sized. We hear this all the time. Oh, they're going to lose all this context. The full idea is not going to get across. And that is one of the cons of how you reach people. Their attention span is so much smaller. But with that, there's a silver lining, which is you can reach more people. And if you do, when you're doing it responsibly, you can do it over and over and over and over again with almost the Trojan horse that these social media platforms don't love, which is to get people off of the platforms, to get them back to me in person.
Well, how many platforms are you familiar with at this point?
So we focus on, we work on all of them, but we focus on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Google search, X, Rumble, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Snapchat. And I'm missing an obvious one, I think. And we've experimented with many. We were doing some stuff with some blockchain social media platforms that was interesting, but those didn't really keep legs. But we focus on the ones where people are making the most amount of votes of value per day.
So do you have a tool that will post to everything at one time, or do you have to go through and...
So we use humans for that. Our team posts individually on each platform, and that's because the platforms don't like you automating posting because they don't see it as a real. That's now your consciousness is now not being used if you have something automated. So generally, when you use things like very popular platforms from Hootsuite, Sprout Social, it hurts the amount of reach that the platforms will give you. The algorithms don't like it. So we post everything one-to-one. We don't automate any of it.
Now, here's where I would look at automation, because the automation, once you write the actual post, the actual posting is what should be automated. And so I think,
and we've automated it in the past, but this is where you get into that strange game of how good do you want to be at social media, from the side of how little time do you want to spend on it, for how much attention do you want to get. That's generally what people look at it as. But we look at it as, if you go on the platform. So we have a client, he's based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, and he is a holistic health practitioner. He's an older gentleman who's never really used social media, and he came to us and wanted to start his brand from zero. Dr. Clark Hansen is his name on Instagram. And he did not want to utilize the platform in order to connect with more patients up front. It was, hey, how can I automate as much of this as possible? And there is a place for that. And we have a lot of automation in the back end of how everything runs. But when it comes down to that human connection, we want to automate as little of that as possible. So when you create a post and you go out and you post it, this is how we speak about it. What you're doing is you're presenting something to a friend. You're presenting something to a group of people or individual person who is going to spend their time and energy to listen to what you have to say. And you need to treat that with respect. So a lot of the time when you start to automate all of these things, like how can I post how many times just in automation? It's very easy, if you look at that as the first step, to make it feel like there's not human beings there, not human beings who are going to be consuming it after the fact. So first step to us is, would you show this? Would you communicate this to a friend or a family member? Somebody comments on your posts. Are you going to respond to them in a way that is based on building a connection, building a relationship? Or are you going to respond to them based in a way that you don't think they're a real person commenting on your post? And we try to start there always. And then down the line, you do get into automation, you get into AI to say, how do I enable this technically to be something that is, one, profitable, not just from a financial standpoint, but from an energy standpoint. Is this giving you more energy than it's taking from you? And two, is this impacting people in the way that you want it to? Is this the correct action to be taken?
well,
It is a strange world we live in. We're constantly having to come up with new terminology and new mental models to work our way through it.
well, we've been doing that forever. Like in the world of alternative energy, a lot of these guys try to explain their inventions, and unfortunately, some of them. I hate it when people talk badly about an education, because that gives us the commonality we need to be able to discuss something. To know that we're discussing apples and apples, and oranges to oranges. But if you don't have that education and you're trying to describe it, and sometimes you make up things, or words. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's just a word that you made up to explain what you observed. Okay. And it takes someone like me, for instance, to go in there and look at this and say, but this is what you're really trying to say, and this is how we would explain it in English, for instance, as opposed to Yiddish, So yeah, AI has its place in that. And AI, the one thing about, well, here's the problem: when the AI is starting to think on its own, okay, things can get garbled real fast because it's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, if you're in class, let's say you're in a room, and you tell something to somebody and tell them to pass it on. And by the time it gets to the other side of the room, it's going to be totally something different. Probably the opposite.
The telephone phenomenon.
Yeah, and that's to come like I would automate the posting if I could, because that way I know that my message will get to everyone the same. And everyone's reading the same script. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and you can do both.
yeah, it has
The
to be both.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we have to keep growing through this process. And speaking specifically on the alternative energy community and how this kind of can intertwine, I spent a lot of 2023 with a group that was an inventor in his group of, I guess some of them are independent researchers, some of them were engineers, some of them mechanics, and we went to Switzerland, we went to India, we went to London, we went to a whole bunch of places, presenting and looking at this technology. And me being the marketer in the group, the person whose job is to document, market, communicate about these things, a lot of what I would hear would be, what is this term? They'd use a term. They'd say, oh, like, I don't know what that term is. Do you mean this one? Like, this is in common language, common vernacular in English. Is this what you're trying to say? And the answer is maybe they are the same thing, but we're trying to figure out which one we're going to utilize moving forward. What is going to be our language model to talk about these things? And that applies very much so to social media when you're communicating online. People say the same thing a million different ways with a million different words. And if you are a human being, it's really up to you to decide what language that you want to use. And if you decide to make up a word, then most people are not gonna not gonna listen to you, not gonna know what that word means, and you could say it for the rest of your life, but it's gonna fall onto deaf ears most of the time. So you have to make a choice. Do you want to use language that other people are gonna understand, or do you not?
But sometimes
So
that made up word becomes a trademark like Teflon.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we have a lot of them. That's You build a good brand around it. Well,
Yeah.
most of the time, made up words, 99.9% of them, you never hear them again because somebody says it enough times and people are like, what the heck is that guy or girl talking about? I don't know what that word is. So we get into the point, kind of the point of that statement there is, if you want to communicate with people, you got to talk to them where they are, like where they're at. And you have to have a level of, you had Dr. Steve Spencer on here. I guess it was a couple weeks ago. He's a client of ours, and Steve creates a lot of amazing content. He puts out a lot of really good stuff, but he's very, very knowledgeable, very well researched about health. I'll just make the broad category. He's one of the most well versed across the board, and he'll tell you about mitochondrial spin, and he'll tell you about your anaerobic respiration and how it impacts X and Y and Z and A and B. And even me sitting there after hours and hours of conversation, I'm like, hey, what I'm not 100% sure what you mean there. And people need the information that he's saying. It would help them. It would be a net positive for their life. But you can't always come to somebody and say, hey, in order to fix this problem, you got to focus on this, which is going to affect your mitochondrial spin. No, you need to say, hey, you need to go outside and get more light. You need more sunlight so your cells can function properly. And if you say that, some people will dismiss it, some won't, but it will hit more ears, and more ears will be open to learn more.
So if someone wanted to utilize the services, what would they do?
Somebody want to utilize our services, the best place to find us to inquire would be, well, my email is on screen here, so you could also send me an email, or you go to our website, audiencegenerator.io, and this is the process we go through. We initially will talk to you. We want to qualify who you are as a person in our first conversation. We want you to qualify us. Do we share a common value system? So we have a call. We say they're 30 minutes. Sometimes they're 15. Sometimes they've been 3 hours. And from there, We identify if we're a good fit to build, and then we have a set of worksheets that we want you to fill out, something called a position analysis and something called a self-discovery survey. And you'll fill those two things out, and we'll analyze where your position is currently as a business or your brand and where you would like to go. And then from what we receive in our conversations, we'll build out a technical analysis, which is based upon our services and what we think you need to get from your current reality to your future perfect outcome or somewhere closer to that. And then we engage generally we engage on a minimum 6 to 12 month basis with a idea of we're going to build this over this time. This is exactly what we're going to build, and this is what we hope to achieve from it, whatever your metrics are. A lot of the time that is growing your business, having more customers, having more people come to your event or come into your practice. Some people just want to have a louder microphone, have their message reach more people. Depends on what it is you're trying to achieve. And then we work together based on a done for you and done with you and coaching basis.
So are you going to be coming to the conference?
I will be coming to the conference. August 7th through 11th, correct?
Right. And then
I've been speaking with Karen about this for a little while, and now that I'm back from Cosmic Summit, I gotta get back in touch, get in the back end of your Meta account and start targeting all these nice people with responsible communications about the conference.
Well, Karen has a comment for you. She says, Becket, what were the magic moments at the Cosmic Summit?
Oh, wow. One thing that I would say is amazing to watch, and it's not really one moment, and I will give you one moment, but there was probably over a 4-day period, over 50,000 different face-to-face conversations. And to watch 600 people come together and have conversations ranging from anything about plasmoids to the Younger Dryas Impact event to talking about Robert Schoch, talking about the pre-dynastic vases to how good the food was or how bad the food was. It's amazing to see people come together and so many people walk away with more face-to-face conversations and more friends. So that's amazing to see. And one really magic moment from the entire weekend was when Randall Carlson started his presentation, or at least it was magic for me. People come from all over the world to see some of their favorite speakers who they've never seen in person online. And when Randall comes out, it's almost like he's like a superstar from a band. And people are almost in tears, standing up, laughing, certain individuals. And then after watching, there's one person I'm thinking of in particular that was literally in tears when Randall was coming up. And then they had the conversation. I watched Randall and them sit down and have a conversation after the fact. And I don't know what they talked about, but it was a 5-10 minute conversation. And I mean, those are some magic moments there.
I love conferences. I love my conference. Every year, it's almost like I don't know, a family reunion, and get to meet all these people you've known for years and that, and I hate it when I miss someone because that's not really good news, because I found usually it's a tragic event and you never see them again, unfortunately. So you come down there, meet people, and enjoy the time that we have here, because you never know.
Yeah.
Could all be gone.
Are you gonna come to Cosmic Summit next year, Steve?
I don't know. So it's
I'm extending an invite to you right now.
It's a long plane ride because it's in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Greensboro, very close to Raleigh.
Yeah, and my family comes from West Virginia, and some of them live down in moved down to South Carolina, Greenville. I've never been to North Carolina. I've been to Virginia Beach, but but it's the flying part. I just every time I get in a plane, I get sick. So I would have to either drive or take Amtrak or Greyhound. You know, I,
Yeah.
I've been all the way from Arizona to Washington D.C. on Greyhound. It's quite the trip. 3 days.
It's a
But
long one. But hopefully we can get you out here, man. Maybe we'll make a week trip out of it.
yeah, and
It's really
Amtrak,
cool.
I could catch Amtrak down in Kingsman, but for that to happen, man, that takes you all the way practically to Chicago, and then you have to drop out of Chicago to the east. I have to look
Yeah.
at the schedules and that. And planes, I mean, planes are all right. Uh, Depends on which ones, but the cost of flying these days has really gone down. I mean, I'm seeing $35 rates for flying all the time, and I understand that that's just the base rate and you want to tack all kinds of extras on it.
Yeah, man. Every time they want to, it's like $100 for a bag or something like that.
Something outrageous, and if I came there, I'd have to ship what stuff I'm bringing, but it all depends on when it is and if I had the program done. Because the
Gotcha.
program for my conference is all important. And this year we were really fortunate. Um, we got this thing to press uh, right after Memorial Day, I think. Anyway, the printer took less than a week to print these things and bind them. And we're talking 15,000 of them. And
Wow.
and then we were able to. I drove down to Casa Grande, which is about 250 miles one way, to pick these things up and bring them back in my pick them up truck,
Yeah.
and so I could take them and drop them off at our mailroom here, who were able to get them done and out within a week. So in the past couple of years, we've been really running late and getting them out right after the 4th. This year, it's not the 4th day. We still got a week or two to go. So I feel good about that. But that's what my main thing is. From the time we get all a speaker platforms laid out, once
We're
you get
looking
there,
at we're looking later August, so it'll probably be after TeslaTech next
later
year.
August.
Yeah, we're pushing it back a little bit. We haven't decided on any specific dates, but we're going a little farther back because we've done it on Father's Day for the last 2 years, and that has its own conflicts.
Yeah, you have I don't know if Psychotron's going to do an in-person conference next year or not. Usually they would be in the middle of July, and mine's like the first weekend of August generally, or actually the second weekend looks like. So it just depends.
Yeah. Well,
Right
we'll
at,
be in touch. We got plenty of time, so I'll
right,
keep bothering you.
right at the conference, we generally have orders for DVDs, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are trying to get me to get rid of DVDs, but I'm not going to get rid of the DVDs because there's a lot of people out there that don't have a DVD. And if you don't have a DVD, they have DVD players. They don't have computers. They don't want a computer. They don't want nothing to do with a computer. That's why my program's so important, because the people who are interested in building Tesla coils and the like, they're not really big into electronics. I mean, Tesla coils are fry electronics.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
Well, I'm gonna help you. I would love to help you bridge the gap between the younger generation, because TeslaTech has a lot of very important information, and
yeah.
the reason. So Karen is the one who introduced us,
Yeah.
and this is kind of the I mean, at least why I'm involved, and I've been involved with the I think she calls them the Rodin Boys, something like that. And that crowd of individuals is like kind of the younger generation who is starting to bring this forward. And I have an immense amount of hope for the future. I by no means am I a scientist or a researcher or engineer. I am simply a communicator and an entrepreneur who is trying to build organizations that are going to help push this world forward. And I have had the immense privilege to meet all of these amazing people, ranging from Robert Temple, Professor Robert Temple. I think he's like 88 or something like that, 85, down to Keon Willman. And maybe I shouldn't put everybody's name out there like that, but this whole range of individuals is, I mean, they hold information and they have information that they want to share with the world. And I come from an outside, I'm an outsider to some extent, and I was welcomed into this community just by stumbling into it to some extent. And it's been life-changing for me, the amount of information that, the amount of things that I've learned, and it's going to be world-changing. It already is world-changing. And there's a piece of that, which is to break through into the culture, to popular culture. We got to be where popular culture is. And by no means do I think that this is an easy thing to do. And most people, when I say this, when I talk about AI, when I talk about social media inside of our community, when it comes up to talk about marketing, it's not always very well received because a lot of it is transactional or it's dishonest. But our whole position is, despite what the common view is, what the current paradigm is, we see a future where leaders are inspiring and enabling people to live lives of freedom, and they do that through the pursuit of truth. They do that with integrity. That's what we hope to do, and I hope to help you bridge the gap to get some more content from TeslaTech into the eyes, ears, and then into the hands and the noses of everybody when they show up to the conference.
And I hope to do that. And I hope that we can get a lot of good DVDs out here because, well, like I say, right now, it looks like the government's not going to support the cheap internet right now. And a lot of people are going to lose their internet access over the next month or two here until they can get a new budget, and hopefully it'll be included in it, because the government does subsidize internet for everyone, especially in the rural areas of this country. And I hope that gets restored. In the meantime, my guys have to rely on things like DVDs and paper.
Yeah.
Paper magazines, and I hope to get that going pretty soon again. But anyway, thank you for being here. Is there any final words you want to leave these people with?
Keep spreading these ideas. Keep approaching things with integrity and honesty, and remember that people that may not be woken up or may not be as receptive are not permanently in that state, and it is our job as other fellow human beings to be beacons of light and inspiration. So I try to leave it with that.
Okay, and I'd just like to remind everyone, August 7th to 11th, we still have a 25% discount if you sign up, and feel free to call me if you have any questions and that during the day. If I can't get to you right when you call, I will call you back. So please leave a number or a message, and thank you again, Becket, for being on here, and thank you for all the people. And I'll see you all again next week. And trying to remember, I think we're going to have the Walter Russell stuff next week. So be prepared. There'll be
Kimberly Faith's crowd.
This will be the I can't remember. Matt Presti with the Russell people. I think he's going to be on. So anyway, I'll catch you all next week, and thank you again, Becket.
Thank you very much, Steve.